Organissima, New York. Your exotic skin, hair, and beauty source, and your one-stop shop for all your natural and organic skin and hair care, featuring authentic organic Moroccan oil and prickly pear seed oil and much more. Bringing you only the best, straight from the source and proudly produced in the USA. So what are you waiting for? Shop today at www.organissima.com. Organissima, New York. Your beauty is our duty.
Folks, welcome back to the iHealth channel, iHealth Radio, and the Fitness 5 channel today. We're gonna go on a mission, literally, and you'll have some fun when I say the word mission once you know who my guest is. But it's a mission to change life, a mission to kind of train the mindset and to really learn how to live happy, healthy, wealthy, both all mind, body, and spirit, which is the combination of who we are. And we do a lot of those discussions, and not every day I get someone who actually is an expert in this matter and who is dedicated now to do this and help people around the world to transform basically to a better being and live a life that's fulfilling and just what we all want. We want to live a happy, healthy, wealthy life, and at times it is difficult for all of us. We all go through our struggles, and it is always good to hear stories and get someone to drive us and at least remind us of what can be done, and that there can be things done for us to be better and live better. So that being said, I have with me today Jake Thomas, and he is a founder, a coach. He helps people, but a founder of Live Like Jake. It is his own concept, but also, I want to do one thing before anything else. He is a former Marine, so I salute you, Marine, and thank you for your service. That goes out to all our veterans out there and all our, service, men and women out there. And thank you for the work you do. So that's due for as always. So thank you for that. And so, Jake, welcome to the show.
Thanks so much, Hurricane. It's good to be here, man.
Listen, you and I, we've been trying to get this going for a couple of months, but we made it, and that's all that matters. Listen, when we do this, it's not always, book done. I mean, sometimes things happen, and it is what it is. But the essential thing is that we're here, and we're going to deliver this message, and you do have a story and a message, and you are doing great work. But this work started, based on your own personal, journey.
Yeah.
Well, let's go there. What was, Jake like early on, and let's take it back all the way when you were, I guess, in the Marine Force, or if you want, whatever you want to take us, but let's bring us from that journey to the point where your life became unique and different, and how you were able to change it.
Yeah, for sure. And again, thanks so much for having me. I'm glad we finally got to connect.
Yes, sir.
Also, but work the wait. I grew up in the suburbs. I went to Catholic school. I had the quintessential makings of what looked to be a beautiful childhood. My parents, even though they eventually got divorced, but weren't the wealthiest of family, we weren't the poorest of family, but upper middle class, went to good schools and had friends and what looked on the surface all the right things. But beneath all that, there's a lot of deceit amidst my family, a lot of infidelity and abandonment. And a lot of that I dealt with, and rather all of it I dealt with as a child from 8 years old throughout the rest of my life. My younger brother and we kept our mouths shut. We just handled things as they were. We were separated from our parents. Our mother abandoned us when we were kids. We lived with the unfaithful father and his wife, and just the materialism of it all, the facade of it all, to be looking like, hey, everybody's smiling and they're the perfect family. We weren't. And that really bothered me from when I was a kid all throughout my life. I just held my tongue. And so I ran to the Marine Corps, because to me that was better than where I was. So I went to that for solace, of all places, to the military. And that's where I first started to learn about myself and the forms of self-reliance and discipline, really more than anything, and fortitude and resilience and honor and courage, commitment, duty, character. Because I didn't really have any of that growing up. I didn't have the examples of it. My father was a great sports coach. but he didn't tell me really anything about being a gentleman. Not much about class, esteem, prestige, chivalry, manners, kindness and generosity. And I had to learn all that on my own. So kind of growing up and becoming a man and learning things, what I thought to be manly, was what I had to create. And the Marine Corps gave me a lot of that, because that began the process of me creating the man I was needed in my life that never had, essentially. Mm-hmm. And from there, that's how I kind of built the foundation of the company. The company started with leadership principles, with characteristics and traits that are commendable, something that you are living the life worth living, life that you can look back upon and say, this is incredible. I am acting, I'm not just becoming, rather, I'm not just appearing to be, I am becoming. Because if you are not embodying something that you are trying to exude, it's falsified, it's empty words, you're not carrying anything. So for me, it was really the Marine Corps where I first started to learn, like, action is the antithesis for anxiety. And in order to become, you cannot just appear to be. And that's where I started to kind of acquire what I was admiring by other people, places, and things. And that started the path to self-mastery.
Well, so Jake, amazing. You are pretty much a representation to a lot of people. I mean, it's. I know that today people are watching and listening that probably can relate to your story, and we all have parents at a point or another in our lives, but depends on what we get from them early on. Sometimes there is some stuff that we can take from them. Sometimes there's not enough, whatever the case may be. But we don't even know ourselves until we get to a certain point of life. But you realize that you didn't have those I guess values and those elements, and you said you ran to the Marine Corps. Now it's funny you said it though, but it was a calling, right? I mean, at the end of the day, I'm sure you believed in something in the Marine Corps. And by the way, that is military in general, or armed forces, are typically great ways where you learn your discipline. And I know Marines specifically have a higher, and I'm not putting down any other branch of the armed forces here, but I have few friends in the Marines, and they all kind of like pretty high about how they believe about the branch itself. But the fact is, it teaches different, I guess, values, and to your point, leadership and honesty and honor, and all these things are things. Discipline is the first element. I mean, certainly you're going through the boot camp business, it's a lot of work, and it's all about drilling you down to becoming, a new person. And that's actually, I mean, I have not served, but I've been in the martial arts, which almost follows similar concepts of ranking and concept of respect, discipline, all the stuff. It's really based on the same concept. And so I understand that. And, I mean, that was my route when I was a kid, but really these are values that you don't just obtain overnight. It's stuff that you have to get used to. I mean, just
you have to earn it.
Exactly. You got to earn it, but also you have to put the time and the effort and the sweat. I mean, even blood, if I'm not mistaken, all of that stuff has to come up, but not everybody is made to actually serve, for example, or to get into that, because it's not easy. It's not for everyone. People sometimes they don't have what it takes to be a Marine, or to be just in armed forces, or sometimes they just don't see it as a route. But the fact of the matter, it is a life-changing experience. And now I'm not sure if you've seen any tours or you've been in action, but I mean, that also changes the person in a whole different way. Now, again, we can talk about that if that's, part of the discussion, but the idea is that you've learned certain values that you may not have had. Now, not everybody is going to have the opportunity maybe to go to a Marine, or any armed forces type of, lifestyle, or at least, as they transfer themselves into becoming a full value person, right? But they do have the ability, for example, to follow, a program like yours, because certainly, you are taking all the stuff that you've learned, and you've applying it now, and you're sharing it with people. But so we'll talk about that shortly. But now, I know you served, you did all the stuff, and then I know you talked about the startup or the company. But in between, I know your story was difficult. There was a point of life where things were not right. If you don't mind, because I think that's a big picture for a lot of people. And the reason I'm asking is that we all have that moment in life where shit is not doing right.
No,
just
sure,
things are not going right. Somehow it's a dead end. Whatever you feel, the world is against you. You don't belong anymore. Things happen somehow at all different levels of our lifespan. We do have these moments, and some have worse than others, right?
Yeah. Oh, yeah.
And so you've gone through that. Let's talk about that phase, because I think that's the other part of what drove you to where you are today. Because maybe if
Sure.
you haven't experienced that, you wouldn't be today.
Yeah,
Who you are.
that's for sure. That's for sure.
All right. So,
I I was a child of 9/11. First of all, back to the kind of the motive to get in there. It wasn't just about running away from home. I was a senior in high school during September 11th, and can remember that obviously day very vividly. So my motivation was a lot of that, but I also had the guise, or the disguise rather, of this family, discontent that I had going on and discomfort and whatnot. So it's perfect. I can join under the shadow of it's for 9/11, but really for this other reason. They just happen to work out together. So I had patriotism, but other self-interest that just happened to correlate with each other. But yeah, man, the biggest thing that I got to remove more honestly was an identity, because you become a Marine. Right? You are a Marine. You are not just in a club or a fraternity and it's still your name like forever. You have that title of Marine. And to me,
Semper Fi.
Semper Fi, brother. And to me, it was every single day I had purpose, I had pride, I had direction. I had this sense of just selfless dedication about me that I'd never had before in my life. It was wow, this is something I can lay my head on, or hang my hat on, so to speak. Something I can pen a legacy signature to. That I was this is what it's supposed to be like. This is what wholesomeness is supposed to feel like. It wasn't about the mission. It wasn't about the war and agreeing with that and the politics and all that stuff. Because at home it's one thing, but overseas it's a completely different thing. At home you're thinking about this is the enemy. F them, blah, 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 blah. Overseas, it's completely different. There is no politics about it. It's just you and your boys, or the people you're with. That's where you're insulated with. That's the war, so to speak, or that's what you're fighting for. It's not like you're fighting for anything back home. It's the immediate surrounding. So your vision and perspective of things is much different depending on where you are, right? Depending on the lens you're looking through. But for me, having that identity just gave me, again, this immense sense of pride and purpose every single day. Well, once I got out after my 4 years, man, that was gone. And that was the hardest thing for me to deal with, because I was I don't know what to do now. Am I still a Marine? I think I'm still a Marine. I mean, I know I'm still a Marine, but I don't have the mission anymore. I'm not wearing the camouflage. I don't have the order of operations, this whole I know. No matter where you are while serving, you know exactly what's going on for the most part. Don't get me wrong, there's occasional spontaneity, but almost every single day, you know what you at least don't have to worry about. When you're on deployment, there's no, I gotta watch the car, I gotta go here and do this, or no, because it's every single day you got this going on, we're cleaning weapons, or we're going on this mission, or we gotta, get ready to go on this helicopter raid or in searching. Everything is so scheduled and structured. And where your place is amongst all of it. You know who you're leading, whether it be a fire team or a squad or a platoon. You know what your maneuvers are. You know what the 5-paragraph orders for the warnings, who the enemy is, what your command and signal, what kind of surveillance and target acquisition is required of you, and you just knew everything. And then you get out of it, and I say in some ways, I've never been to prison before, and I'm not trying to be insensitive to that, but to come from a place of so much structure, and then just to be kind of back into the world, I was lost. And that feeling was really hard for me to take. And that's why I went down a road for the better part of 15 years of just wandering confusion by way of consumption of powder, consumption of liquids, consumption of people, consumption of company, consumption of experience, food, anything I could find to take myself away from the present, to not feel the sobriety of reality. That was the beginning of what I call my downfall. But like you said, you have to come from somewhere in order to have perspective and understanding. That was the beginning of my deep dive into perspective and experience that now I dwell from and really build so much in the company around.
Thank you, Jake. Well, first of all, I mean, you said it. I mean, once you're a Marine, you're always a Marine, and I think that's the concept. But in reality, when you go to regular life, it's not that structured. It's not that you don't have the same commands and the same structures, and that's like everything else, right? You're used to a certain way every day, and then you're trained to do that. Your mind, your body, everything is actually conditioned, and then all of a sudden you're like on your own, and there is no because it's like you're. I'm excuse me for this term. You're being robotic in terms of your activity,
Totally,
and you're
totally.
programmed, and then all of a
Totally.
sudden there's no more programming.
Totally. And
So
what
you're
do
like,
I do? You forget, like, what do I do now? I don't understand. Like, I had a professor in business school purposefully in an entrepreneurship class gave us an assignment without kind of parameters to it. And I was in an all veteran business school class at Southern Cal, and we all kind of looked at each other like, what do we do? Like and we came back the next week to turn in those assignments, and we were all kind of like hodgepodge what we had. And she was like, I purposefully gave this to y'all because I knew you were going to have difficulty without structure and order. And we were like, well, yeah, but like to us, it was a huge aha moment of like, damn, like we're that indoctrinated, or we're that, like you said, programmed like computers or robots. We're like, when someone gave us a little bit of freedom and said, hey, just do it your own way, we were like, we kind of froze up.
well, that's pretty interesting because life is just like that. I mean, as we are born and raised, through different stages, you are being conditioned to certain ways. And the minute, for example, you're loose and you're on your own, sometimes you don't have what it takes because
totally.
And that's if you had enough structure given to you, but you start with no structure and then you're completely, just in the vacuum, that's a problem.
Right.
But then when you have extreme instruction and guidance and structure, and then all of a sudden you got none of it, and you're not the leader, meaning that you're not the one who's given those instructions, then that's even worse because now you become your own leader, but you have not been leading. So that's another thing. But I wanted to just go back to your service and beyond, because you said after that it was like 15 years, if I got it correctly, of downhill. But was there any trauma involved in this to trigger that, or there's no event that actually created? Because I mean, I know a lot of veterans, they do have some level of PTSD, but I'm not again judging everyone, but I'm just asking because that could be a reason behind it from the psychological aspect of it, but it could not be. And so just for our audiences, if you can clarify that.
Yeah, it's a great question too. First off, it was the feeling of misplacement. I just didn't feel right being back into society as a civilian. From how you talk, how you walk, the way you perceive people and the adherence you expect from people, perfection. Let's say, for example, my girlfriend and I at the time, I had zero patience. I had zero tolerance for failure or any, change in plans whatsoever, because when you're programmed to where failure equals death, or, anything other than perfection could potentially equal death, it's hard to see anything else other than that being right. And I did not have the patience for people whatsoever, number one. And that made me feel, ostracized and kind of outside. And then sitting through classes in undergraduate school, because I went back to school thinking that's what I needed to do. And I didn't want to sit around people. I just didn't feel normal. I didn't feel right being there. And I had injuries to both legs my first year in service, and I had to have surgeries after my discharge. And those surgeries, had to be in consecutive years because I couldn't have them both at the same time, because there was one on the left leg, one on the right leg, and having to go through the nerve damage with those because one of the surgeries was messed up, and having to relearn how to rehab my legs and run and walk and everything again was annoying and frustrating because I felt like something was taken from me. So I had a bit of a FU disposition towards it, and some inferiority, sorrow, I should say, pitiable sorrow, like why me, why this happened to happen, why did this have to happen to me, blah 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 blah, I wish it was worse, or having guilt because I had friends that lost a lot more than that, and here I am complaining about his leg issues. And it's like, guys would kill to have that be the problem as opposed to what, limbs or eyes or other things, their lives that they gave. So I was in this weird flux of not knowing what to think was right. And then amidst all that, trying to understand how I even felt. And I was confused, man. And like I said, I didn't know all this at the time. At the time, I didn't know that it was about having lost an identity. I didn't know at the time it was about me just trying to readjust to life, and that no one was wrong. There was nothing wrong with my friends, my girlfriend, my family. No matter who we are, where we are, what we're doing, the world is not as we perceive it. The world is as we are, and it is a reflection of ourselves back upon us. Right? So me thinking like, God, they're all fucked up, or like, what the fuck's wrong with you? And not to mention my vocabulary, every third word was fuck, right? So like, mom passed me the fucking mashed potatoes, like, hey, what the fuck's going on? Like, I couldn't, that's how we talk as Marines, right? And I just didn't feel right, man. Like to the point where I felt so lost and upset and abandoned again, right? So like I felt like the Marine Corps had abandoned me the same way I felt my mother had abandoned me. And now feeling like my friends had abandoned me because I grew up with them a certain way, and I was now different, and I couldn't change for them. Like I wasn't the same guy anymore. And that was hard for me to try to handle, because I remember being smiley and fun and loved them and loved how they loved me. But I was different now, and I didn't know all this at the time, but it was what was driving my confusion. And so in order to deal with that, I drank and I consumed, and I took pills, and I snorted powder, and I slept with lots of girls, and I did anything I could to make myself not feel the feelings that I was having, so that I could somehow, I don't know, try to numb them through what I was, essentially self-medicating.
Well, thank you first for sharing. I mean, that's pretty, a lot of details. And, I think it's important because people may not understand what it means until they see the full picture. And again, it is a difficult task to readjust, and especially when you went that young. That's the other part. I mean, you were young enough, so your conditioning was like, it's like that's the only programming you will have now. Yeah. And becoming back, into the reality of things is not going to be fitting, and you will have the questions. And to your point, there's all these, do I fit in? Which were, it's like you're almost like in a transition mode, and you don't even know where do you belong. Totally. And then you had what most people would do, just you want to just kind of numb yourself through it all, and just kind of keep through the emotions and just going through it. But then there's a price to that, right? I'm sure you've probably alienated some people, and you hurt yourself physically as well. But there was a bottom line. There's like a point that was defining in your life, past this point. I mean, you've gone through these years of just the same, still lost. But what was that defining moment that actually woke you up? I mean, so to say, because I know there's got to be a trigger point, enough is enough.
Oh yeah. My younger brother is an attorney.
Okay.
Brilliant attorney, which for a younger brother means I can never talk down to him anymore, because he's intellectually superior to me, and he certainly thinks so, and he knows. So he was coming. We were talking one day after law school, a law school class that he had just come from, and I loved listening to him kind of discuss things that he had learned, because I just thought it was fascinating, and I was so proud of him also. So anytime he wanted to share, I was curious, and I just loved to listen to him talk about his school and what he was learning, because to me, I was, again, just so proud of him. And we were talking about statutes in Louisiana and specific codes of law that have mandatory sentences based on the crimes. And he was telling me, he's like, yeah, did you know possession of a firearm along with a controlled dangerous substance, or a CDS, is a mandatory 10-year sentence? And I was like, oh, wow, that's interesting. I had, at the time, this is 10 years ago, I was always carrying a firearm in New Orleans. Always. I always had a gun on me, either on my person or in my vehicle. Always, always, always. And at the time when he was telling me this, I always had a bag or bags also on me or in my vehicle. So the combination. For years, every day, every night, everywhere I went, everywhere I drove, regardless of what I was consuming, what type of influence I was under, I always had a firearm and a controlled dangerous substance, a CDS, on me for years. And when he told me that, I was like,
Ooh.
wow, how many bullets, pun intended, have I dodged that would have been mandatory 10 years, minimum 10 years, right? Not to say what could have been tacked on had, it would have been some type of being under the influence while driving. God forbid I hit someone and then there's manslaughter, voluntary, involuntary, otherwise on top of that, or worse, to think about like just me going around partying, dealing with my problems the way I was, so to speak, having all that sorrow and taking it out spitefully on the world in the way that I saw to be the right way, or the way I didn't give a fuck. So like, fuck you, this is what I'm doing. That way of life had a minimum of 10 years behind it. Dude, you're fucked. You know what I mean? I'm no tough guy. Like, yeah, don't get me wrong. I'm a Marine and I can fend for myself. But I don't want to go there. I don't want to go to the state pen or federal pen. Like that's not where I belong. I don't need to go prove that battlefield to anybody. God, no. And to think back of all the years that I've been doing this, all the days, all the nights, all the times I've driven, where I had my guns, where I had bags on it, like, and to think like, my God. And that was just that was the first real wake up call. But it wasn't enough, but it was the first one.
Wow. So well, I do have a question. I mean, and I love the fact that your brother had the influence, and at least a trigger point.
Yeah.
But that years went by, and where's everybody that was in your entourage? I mean, was there anyone that was trying to help, and did you seek help actually in between, in those years, or just the only help you had was you're just being distracted with all whatever you can, I guess, have fun with?
Oh man, I was a master of disguise. I learned that real fast, first off. And the way that I did it was I always stayed in shape physically, because I have friends that did not make it out the way that I did as far as in living, and succumb to their own vices through overdose or otherwise. And I remember whenever they would pass that it was always like, it was so obvious that they were headed that way. Why? Because their health, their physical appearance was the first thing to deteriorate. He lost all this weight. She got really pale. We don't hardly see him anymore. She doesn't talk to anybody. Like the writing on the wall was so obvious again. And so like anyone that's going down a path of overuse or abuse of drugs or alcohol or otherwise, let me tell you what to look for. They're going to get pale, first off, because they're spending a lot of time indoors. So what did I do? I made sure I was in the sun a lot. I would tan in tanning beds on purpose to never look pale, so people couldn't pin that one on me. That's number one. Again, the skin is the greatest sign of health that you can see in someone. The vibrancy, just the color of the pigment and otherwise. And the same thing with lacks thereof. You look at people that look slimy and translucent, and that's their largest organ in their body saying, hey, I'm fucked up, right? Mm-hmm. Second thing was I kept my physical shape. People knew that was a thing that I always had. It was, again, a piece of my identity. It was like I was always working out. I was an athlete all my life. I was a Marine, and I made sure to always stay in shape because, number one, it's what I wanted to do, but I knew it also would hide what was going on beneath me. So those were the real two big things. Like I just maintained pigment in my skin, and I worked out really healthfully. And then, I didn't necessarily broadcast the habits to the masses. Like I had plenty of people who knew what I was doing within the circle, but most people just saw me as, he just drinks and he parties. Like he's a Marine, he's an undergrad college, or he's a former Marine, he works in the oil field. It makes sense. But like the circle within the circle, they definitely knew.
So again, I mean, so you camouflaged it well enough.
Oh yeah.
So somehow you were. So that was conscious, though. I mean, it's not like you knew where you were, but you were just playing the game, trying to figure it out as you go.
Yeah.
But I'm assuming it felt good at a point, or maybe it didn't. I mean, was that really just what was the true sensation? Because it's one thing to give a facade or like, you give that look to everybody. This is what people see as perception and really what you were dealing with internally. And it seems that you had almost an ability to do that and just to keep going, which, by the way, a lot of people do that. They would hide their true feelings from the public, but they keep that inside. Eventually, that's just like a volcano just getting ready to erupt.
Yep.
And it just like, it adds up and adds up. And all it takes is one trigger and poof. Now, I did read that you get to a point where you had some awful thoughts, if we want to call maybe, I guess, terminal thoughts.
Sure.
Can you expand on that? I mean, just because, because I think that's a big element for people watching and listening right now. No matter what you're going through your life, if you do start, seeing these kind of, signs, it is time for you to seek help, I think, or at least, face the reality but don't go there. I mean, there are people out there that can listen. There's ways out of these things. And I know you are helping people right now to be transitional, to actually become transformed and really live a life that is vibrant, regardless of where you were.
Yeah.
So let's talk about that. And then we can transit into how now you became the new you and how you started, the company. And before, I'm assuming you had a minute before you started the company, but you started thinking about how to change yourself and then ultimately change the rest. Which, by the way, that is commendable because, we're by human nature, we are somewhat selfish, but you didn't just change yourself, but now you took it where you don't want to keep this for yourself. You want to share with the world. Totally. That's honorable also because not everybody takes this route. I mean, for me, and I don't give a shit about the rest of the people, but you're not doing that. But let's talk about that transition in that moment where you got to that dark place and how you got out of it. And then what was the transitional moment?
Yeah. What started, there's always the gateways, right? And for me, drinking, it was, I was working at a bar. So I was drinking, 8 nights a week. And it wasn't always my use, my cocaine use, but the frequency became more and more frequent, right? So what starts out as just a little bit amount, infrequently became much more and much more frequently. And then when I moved to New York in 2015, that's when it really opened up because now I had so much availability, so much acceptance of that, in nightlife and et cetera, et cetera. Don't get me wrong, it's not New York's fault. I was hanging out with the people that I was attracting and I was attracting those people because that's what I was myself, right? Mm-hmm. But again, the frequency became so often, the amounts required became so much that it went from fun and habitual to like utilitarian and necessary to where I couldn't go out without the bag. I couldn't have fun without the bag. I didn't want to do this without the bag. And then that would turn into, a day and a half of being out or 2 days or 3 days of being out. And then to come down, I would need other pills and substances and take these things. And like, I was just in this hamster wheel of highs, ultra highs and ultra lows. And there was rarely any sobriety anymore in there, right? So if I have these ultra highs and ultra lows or peaks and valleys, and then sobriety is in the middle, I was barely ever hitting that anymore because I was either so far up here or so low down here. And 2016, I believe, I woke up one morning at my condo in Manhattan on the floor in the elevator. And the door was like, oh, shit. Like back and forth closing on me. And I don't remember how I got there. I don't know how long I've been there. I've been there long enough, clearly, but I don't remember anything. And anyway, I opened my phone and I had a slew of messages. I can't believe you did this last night. No violence, nothing, lewd or otherwise, but just behavior and being, not unconscious, but, unrevivable and just pretty much not someone you wanted to hang around with. And my girlfriend at the time was very upset and hurt and understood that. I understood that. And it was just finally like, dude, you got past the guns and the car thing. Like, what more do you need? You have people crying around you. You're going nowhere. is this the life you really want? Like, is this the man you really want to be? You've come so far. You've gone through so much to get here. You've sacrificed. Other people have sacrificed, have bet on you, have spent for you, have invested in you. Is this how you reward them, let alone yourself? So I just had, in that moment on the floor of this elevator, like this, all these things in my head. And it was a great, I don't know, symbolic kind of situation to be like, I can either stay here, lay here, and die, or get up and just, dust off my shirt and start changing. And I did. It wasn't that day. It wasn't that year. It took time. It took multiple, stints in an outpatient rehab clinic that I went through the VA and outside privately. It took counseling. It took talking. It just took work. It took work that I didn't want to do. It took time that I didn't want to give. It took honesty that I didn't want to give. It took fucking accountability that I did not want to give. That's probably the biggest thing about it. That was probably the hardest thing for me, H, was to be accountable, because it's easy to be a victim. I'm not saying being a victim is fun. I'm not saying a victim is easy, but it is easy to be one, by way of, it's a lot harder to have to stand in the fire and say, I'm not. And that's where I kind of have this divide with addiction, because when you call yourself an addict, you're assuming the title, and it's almost like, oh, I can say it wasn't me. It was this substance, or there was this drink, or it was her, or it was the gambling. I didn't do that. The stuff made me do it. Fucking bullshit. 99.9% of addicts have never had a gun pointed to their heads and said, and been told, you will do this line or I will blow your brains out. You will drink this drink or I will blow your brains out. You will sleep with this woman or I'll blow your brains out. Those are fucking conscious choices, period. Now, can addictive behaviors build up over time through consumption of certain things and the hormonal responses that those things do and bid upon the body? Absolutely. But 99% of people, the assumption of the term addict is a convenience. It's an amnesty of accountability, and I fucking hated it. So I did not like going to AA, because I sat there and I was like, everybody's like, I'm this, I'm that. I was like, this is fucking horse shit. I appreciate your sensitivities and your honesties, but I was like, all these people, none of them are admitting it. Like, they're not admitting to, I did this. And that, it only took a few meetings for me not to go back. And then I started looking in the mirror and saying, I did this. I chose to do this. Nothing else made me do this other than myself, my own free will. And the same way that I chose to do it is the same way I can fucking choose not to. And that became my eureka moment of mindset, because our thoughts are things, man. And the same way we can think ourselves into anxiety, paranoia, depression, or anything that's adverse to happiness and content, we can use that same power to think ourselves out of it. And I sprinkled in a little bit of Marine Corps leadership, some discipline in there, some stoicism, traditional, conventional wisdoms, philosophy, ancient and modern and otherwise, a little bit of religion even on top of that too. And I started to form this concept of okay, putting this formula together, this system, because we do not rise to the level of our goals. We fall to the strengths of our systems. And I had a goal. My goal was getting healthy, getting well, just not being who I was, getting away from this. And so I had that goal, and I didn't know this, understand the system importance at the time, but I was building this system to get me there. And through these habits, through stop watching this, stop doing that, stop drinking, stop, et cetera, et cetera. And basically a form of addition through subtraction, I was building the company. I did not know it at the time, but I was saving my own life. I was, again, creating the man I never had in my life, but it was the man that I always needed. And then as soon as I started to find him, like you said, I couldn't wait. All I wanted to do was give it away to the world, in a sense of not being pompous and beating my chest I've saved myself. I wanted y'all, check this shit out. Look what I found here, man. You guys got to get some of this. And that's what I try to do now with my work and with my life is trying to share the same steps, the same formula, the same system that saved me, that brought me to where I am now, is the same one that can work for anybody else. And that's what I try to give away.
Wow. Jake, I have to say, I'm listening to you, and you are so honest about it and clear about it, and I can see just the
I'm
energy
happy.
that I know. I mean, well, that's the thing, like, because it's like you found a treasure, and
100%,
and you're like a
a
gazillion,
kid, man.
well, a gazillionaire. I mean, like someone who's just like found, and a fountain of wealth that is
Yeah, it's what it
infinite.
is, man. It's what it is.
But that's the thing. We all have access to it in general, but we
100.
tend to lose it by our own doing. But you said it best, is that not everybody is accountable enough or takes this approach. Let me look at the mirror. Who the hell did this to? No one, like to your point, nobody put the gun to your head.
Yeah.
We all make the same mistakes every day, and we blame everybody but not ourselves. But you are the one who took the action. It's there's no doubt. No matter if you tell me right now, let's do something bad, and I follow you, it's not because you told me, it's because I wanted to.
Right.
It sounded right, and I decided to go. I could say no.
Sure.
That's all there is. And it's always our actions that drive us to whatever we are. And then to your point, yes, once you get into that mix, it gets just a routine, and you lose yourself, and you don't even think about it anymore. To get to the point, you don't even know where it started.
Yep.
But that being honest and clear about, like, no, this is here. I own this. And it takes a lot of willpower to actually also admit to yourself that it was your doing, and not being a coward about it, because a lot of people are like, I'd rather blame the world for all my mistakes, and
Totally.
my
It's easy.
yeah, I can blame my parents, I can blame society, I can blame, whatever I was, because nobody cared. But is that really the reality of things? And I think everyone watching and listening, if we ask the question, what was my doing? What was my contribution to whatever I am doing today? That question itself can change your life, because if you start really, and you have to honestly answer it, don't find an excuse to find a reason why you are not guilty. I mean, seriously, because that's really what we do. Like, we got to find every reason why it's not, I didn't do it. Like, I have to justify why it was. If it wasn't for this one, this wouldn't have happened. But were you there or not? I mean, it takes two to tango. You were there. Yeah. You tangoed. Yeah. you partaked, right? So that's there's no kind of concept here where you can eliminate yourself from the equation. You're part of it, right? So you have to get out of it. But you did.
It's hard, man. It's not, because it's not what we want to do. You know what I mean?
I agree.
It's like it's consciously seeking suffering for personal growth. You don't see it like that. Like, don't get me wrong, I wasn't this stoic about it then. I wasn't like, I'm consciously seeking suffering for personal growth. Very Epictetus and Marcus Aurelius. No, at the time I was just like, you're a fucking coward. Look yourself in the mirror and admit it. Don't look away until you admit it.
But you did. And I think that's, I think that's a big position for people watching and listening. We might not have, maybe someone watching right now, this doesn't apply to me, but I guarantee you there is someone that knows someone and knows someone that knows you in your circles, or at least, the message can be, given to other people and shared with someone that may need the help. And there's a lot of stuff, but the idea of you not being aware of where you are, or just like blaming the world and get into a dark place. And again, some people, sometimes they take another way out, which basically they term their life. They get to that point where they think that's the solution, and that's, again, not an acceptable outcome.
No.
We don't want people to go there. And yes, we are weak as humans, and we do have, to your point, higher lows, and sometimes you just, shit happens, life happens, and you feel sorry about yourself, and you just kind of drown yourself into something to just kind of, almost like immune yourself to the rest of it. It's just like, I don't want to know anything. You kind of like keep yourself on the radar.
Ignorance can be bliss, right?
Yeah, exactly. Well, that's what it is. Like, the ostrich effect. I put my head down.
Yeah.
I don't care about what's going on. I'm cool. Yeah. But you're not cool. You're just getting worse.
Yeah.
But coming out and facing the reality of things, and really taking the necessary steps. Yes, it's brutal. I know it took you a lot of work and a lot of discipline to get back. It also took you had to go to the VA, you had to go to the sessions, you had to do certain things, you had to give up some things, that you were so used to. Your body had to adjust again. You had to replace all that system that was completely destroying your body and your mind and spirit with something that is new. But once you discovered it, once you regained all that sensation is just euphoria. It's something that is beyond what people. It's like that's the ultimate.
It's real
satisfaction.
Bliss. It's real bliss, and it's real joy. It's not falsified. It's because it's sober, right? Yet through sobriety, you can still elicit the same hormonal responses as you can with drugs and alcohol. You can still get oxytocin, the feel-good hormone. You can still get epinephrine, norepinephrine, adrenaline. You can still get serotonin. The same kind of pleasure center stimulus and response hormones, a la the ones that I just listed, that come from, let's say, cocaine, ecstasy, and whatnot. You can do on your own through life, through natural things. And like once I started to find that, like, don't get me wrong, I'm still a junkie, but I'm a junkie in life, in the best way, for myself and for other people. And like, yeah, you want to call me a junkie on that? I'll fucking take that right on the forehead, but it was me basically repurposing that interest or repurposing that attention, that addictive behavior, that commitment, that obsession into something that I was like, oh, this is what it's all about. Because this pays back, this pays forward, this pays dividends. It only pays dividends, as opposed to you wake up in the morning from a bender and it's like, I want to kill myself. I'm never doing that again. Blah, 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 blah. I'm broke. All the negatives. There's no negative here, H. There's none. There's only positive. And it just builds and builds and builds on this interest. So that feeling, yeah, I am a habitual, addictively obsessed person with life, health, and vitality. Absolutely.
Jake, it's funny. While they sell all the other pills out there that can destroy you or just simulate some of these sensations chemically, they don't sell a positivity pill.
No.
But what's funny about it? The positivity pill is this discussion, is listening to talks like this, is to really look at people who have changed their lives, and just get that energy from them. And by the way, it's a rush. I mean, for me, you have no idea how I feel about positivity. I mean, sometimes I swear I've at jobs they ask me the question like, tell me something wrong about yourself. I say I'm so positive I can't see negative in anything.
Well, dude, I mean, even for me, like the same with the rush. Like a lot of my tattoos that I have came during a dark time in my life, and as much as I love the artwork and they are an expression of me and my story and my personality, a lot of it was my way of cutting myself without cutting myself, right? Because I was like, I don't want to be a cutter. So like, what can I do? I can get tattoos. I can deal with it. So like a lot of especially like my largest one on my left arm, I sat through for like 7-8 hours in the chair, and I was like, I'm good, dude, And the guy was like, he's like, man, I can't really see too well anymore. It's been a long time. Most people don't sit this long. And I was like, I can keep going, because I was so mad. I was so up to the neck, ostrich, like you were saying, with this just feeling of F everybody, And now this is how I cut myself, dude. Like to what you're saying about like the expression, the outlet, like I have to do this. Like sharing stories, talking with people like you, the content that I put out, giving myself to my clients, anything that I can do to project the voice, to project the message. That's my way of cutting. That's me like here, like I need to let it out, guys. Like I'm sharing this content. I'm posting this thing, this YouTube video, whatever I'm doing. Like I'm doing it because I need to do that. I need that outlet. I'm so full of joy and happiness that it's like you said, a volcano. It's just coming out of me to where I'm like, dude, I got so much. I don't need it all. Like y'all have some, like please have some of this. Trust me, it's fucking good for you.
Well, it's funny because when you get to that level of positivity, you don't feel the need to hold on to it. It's like energy, right? You get to a point where you have to admit it. You have exactly. Well, it's not going to run out because you have the source now. You are generating the positivity.
Yeah.
So it's like you have an infinite.
I'm an emanator. You know,
Exactly.
Like, yeah, there you go. There you go.
It's available. But so now let's talk about that. You found it. You're excited about sharing it, and then you decided to really take it on the road. So now you started Live Like Jake. I mean, I love that whole title of the foundation or the company, because people like, what does that mean? I mean, Live Like Jake. I mean, is it the before or the after, right? Obviously it's the after, right? But what does that look like for someone, and who are, I guess, your clients, because, or your customers? Because I understand that you're giving up to people, you're giving back to people, and you're sharing this, your experience, but now you're changing the lives for those that probably are going to similar experiences that you've gone through. And maybe even some people that may just entertain going through that route, or maybe just people to just become positive, because not everybody has the positive outlook in life. And unfortunately, with everything that goes around us all the time, we just kind of have almost no option but being negative, because you hear a lot of nonsense. And our subconscious is absorbing all that stuff, and then it becomes whatever the mind hears, the mind express, the body, and and your personality is going to express. And so if we hear positivity all the time, you're going to get positivity. You hear negativity, which again, in our circles, we hear a lot of it. Oh, shit doesn't work. Who do you think you are? Blah, blah, blah. It's not working. You know what? You should just do this. Let's have some fun. And you hear all the stuff, but you don't get like, you got this, you're going to be successful, follow your dreams, do whatever it takes. I mean, I literally, if you look at my feed on Instagram, TikTok, and all the stuff, every day I pump like few, of these clips from all these positive people in the world and these memes, because I actually absorb them and I share them. I absorb them and share them. And the reason, and every day kind of keeps me on the same tune. It's like, you tune it up every day, because out of sight, out of mind, the minute you start, not seeing them, you start getting the other influx. I don't want that. I want to keep seeing that. So again, it's my tool, but you're right. You're doing this now. How do you, I mean, first of all, what is your program like for people? And, how easy is it to actually go through the program? And what are some of the tools you use to help people, get from where they were to where you are today?
That's fun. All good questions, and where to start. It's life like Jake, but it's really life like you. That's what it's all about. Life like Jake is just, it rhymes. It's my name. It makes sense. It's true. Don't get me wrong. Like, it was a play on the whole fact that this is what I did to get my life, right? But like, if anything, it's just 3 easy words. There's good SEO because of the word life, like, and Jake. So it's Googleable. It just worked out at the time. And even then, I didn't know that I was going to build a company around it when I first did it. When I first kind of came up with the name, the fact that you said, what does that even mean? I was like, perfect. That's the perfect response to it. Meaning people are like, I don't get it. What does it mean? Define it yourself. It means whatever it does to you, to each person. And now I really say, like I said, it's life like you. So from that, the core principles, the core beliefs, things like being a man for others, putting priority on curiosity, having the curiosity of a child. I've got 20 different core values that I put on to people right from the beginning. But to start, it's really about understanding them and each person's individuality. Because as much as it's about their health, it's about self-actualization, autonomy, and self-mastery that we're trying to get to here. And at the foundation of all of it, is nutrition. Why? Because the single most effective thing we can do as human beings in regards to our health is controlling what we put into our mouths. We are in a war out there, Hurricane. A war against poison. Poison that has been fed to us, to our children, to our parents before us, and that'll likely still be here for generations to come. Eat these foods, get sick. Consume these medications, stay sick, stay dependent. Drink this alcohol to numb yourself and keep yourself less healthy, further sick, and also less intelligent. Wake up the next day, drink this stimulant a la coffee to falsify your sense of energy and keep you on this perpetual hamster. Go to your job that you actually hate, work too many hours to not actually have self-time for personal growth, development, et cetera, et cetera, et cetera. That's the American dream. Cool. That sounds fucking terrible. And yet, the majority of our country, and I'm going to go after the US mostly on this because it's us leading this charge, is sick, is uneducated, is plugged in, and thus they are not unplugged, and believe and subscribe in this system because they think it's what is right and good for them, yet it couldn't be more diametrically opposite. The foods that are out there, by way of processed foods, more than anything, refined sugar and carbohydrates, there's a reason why something like, a third of American adults are obese, and something why 1 in, I think 5, maybe it's 1 in 6, I forget, American children are obese. That's not random. And with obesity and all the dietarily related diseases that follow with that, 90% of the foods available in today's grocery stores were not existent 100 years ago. 90% of today's illnesses and diseases were not existent 100 years ago. In fact, is that a coincidence that those two are parallel like that? I don't think so. The amount of money that is spent falsely and ignorantly by all of us thinking we need this supplement, we need this attitude, we need this thing, we need this place, you need nothing. 99.9% of us need nothing. Again, there isn't, of course, allocated room for the outliers, but 99% of us can heal our diseases, can heal our ailments. Besides trying to help someone regrow appendage that is missing, of which I'm still not totally saying we can't do it, because that's how much I believe in the power of the human body and what's capable of healing. But everything else, oh, you have depression? Fucking bring it to me. You have anxiety? Fucking bring it to me. You can't get off drugs? You've been hooked on dope for 40 years? Bring it to me. I have worked with people and helped people do things that were supposed to be medically impossible or scientifically not possible. Good friend of mine I've known all my life. He's about to be 40. He's been prescribed Xanax since he was a child for anxiety and depression. For the last 30 years, he's taken a pill every day and every night for his anxiety. He's been with me for about 5 months now. He hasn't taken a pill in 3.5 months. Wow. No medication, no doctor, nothing. Started with a diet plus a few habits. That's it. That's not downgrading the work that he's doing. That's not being insensitive to the effort that he's making. No, but that is the beauty and the power of the human body. It's not about a diet. It's about the removal of the fucking garbage that's out there. That is basically everything that people consume. The oils, the false types of ingredients that are littered throughout everything that we eat. Like one of my clients is a first grade teacher, and she sent me pictures of what kids are eating in school. Candy, sweets, crisps, chips, like bullshit. I mean, even me, like going and visiting my lovely brother, the attorney. Rarely have I seen his daughter, my godchild. She'll be 4 in July. Rarely have I seen her eat a whole food. Meaning, I've never seen her eat a strawberry. I've never seen her eat a piece of chicken or fish. I've only ever seen her eat Skittles, Starburst, cookies, pastries, sweets, and treats. And what are her friends eating? The same thing. That's not the child's fault. It stems from leadership. So what do the parents do? Well, they drink every night. Do they eat well? They think they do, but they don't. How much processed food and nonsense is in their diet? It's literally. We are in a war again. And most of us, let's say most of them out there, they never had a chance because they're blinded by their own pride, by their own falsified sense of comfort and the things that they've been indoctrinated with, their beliefs. Because my mother did it, my parents did it. I'm from fucking New Orleans, man. My mother's from Mexico. Like, I'm well qualified in eating very decadent and rich foods. I'm well qualified in drinking. I've got 10 championship banners hanging up in world-class drinkers organization. Okay. Like, I can speak to these things, and I'm saying that it's wrong, man. Like, the problems that are going on in the world, mental disorders and so much mental health and certainly physical things, especially on the cellular level, are dietarily related. You do not need these supplements. You're not losing the fight in the gym. You're losing the fight on the fucking plate. So my programs, no matter who you are, whether they're the teenagers that I have, the Marine Corps Scout snipers that I have, the Army Green Berets, the Iron Men and women, the average Joes and Janes, the 72-year-old grandmother, the 71-year-old grandmother, the 62-year-old Ironman, friends, family, acquaintances, and otherwise, all of them start off getting their diets under control. And through my years of research, that diet has been a whole foods animal-based one, period. It is the best way to remove impurities and toxins through the body by giving the body the most it can get with the least, meaning single sources of sustenance, because you cannot do that with other types of food groups, other types of diets, because they're going to require amino acids to be within the system. So it starts with nutrition.
Wow. By the way, I agree with you. Right. Any million times you want, but because you're right. It's, our bodies are, I mean, you have this with religion concept.
The most amazing machines in the world.
We are resilient.
Amazing machines in the world.
We are resilient.
Also the most fragile.
That's right.
The most amazing machines in the world.
The body is capable of healing itself with the proper, I guess, nutrient and I guess removing yourself from the bad stuff, because we are exposed to bad stuff, to your point, from the minute. And by the way, you hit it right on the money, because when you're talking about kids, I make a joke with my kids. And I don't know where we go wrong, because I'm gonna take guilt, and accountability as well, because
I'm not the whipping, like wrong. Like, if anything, it kills me to see, because I'm not being the judge or the critic. I'm the observer. I'm the anthropologist.
You're right, by the way, but I think we all have this dilemma, because no matter how, so I can tell you my own experience, right? So I'm a parent. And I've made sure that we have good food at home, cooked meals and stuff. We hardly do the stuff. And every now and then, we fall into that whole, let's eat out, and you get a lot of sodium, a lot of sugar, a lot of nonsense. But then, obviously culturally that's become almost like, you have to, but we minimize that to a degree. Mm-hmm. But from the home stuff, our kids, when they were little, they ate our food, they ate everything. But then everything around them is, to your point, is the pizza, is the pasta, is all the fake food, or like nothing is really nutrient enough for them. And but they can't eat everything else. Somehow it's like almost like it's drilling their mind this is the only food they can eat. Like, literally, we'll have a bunch of salads and stuff on the table. Like my son, I fight with him every day, and if he listens to the show, he's 16, so I tell him this all the time, dude. I don't know why, but you don't eat any fruits or vegetables. And it's not because we don't have them. You'll have a full plate and they'll actually grab something different, or pop up something. I'm like, dude, you're not helping yourself.
They're the future commodity age. That's the thing. Like, the elderly they're already paying customers, so to speak. So how do you recruit your future investments? You hit them when they're fucking young, when they're impressionable. It's the same way a terrorist organization works. Same exact way. You go after the young and the weak. The elderly you've already got, and they're already on their way out, so they're good. That's a concept. That's a good populace we have. They're paying customers. They'll eventually die off. Us, our age group, a little bit above, a little bit below, we're kind of, on the fence. Some of us are going against the other way, but most people are still going to end up being on this side too. But the future is the children. Go after the children. So how do we do that? We go after the schools. We go after their hospitals, their pediatricians. We make sure the medical practice is pumping. Okay, grains. We want grains. Oh, we want, sugars. We want juices. It's like everything that's being prescribed to our kids is poison for the most part. And it's because that's where we can get the most, meaning Big Brother. That's where Big Brother can get the most future commodity. The best price for its future commodity is right there in the little ones. And who are you to be the one to tell your kids they can't have this because their friends at school had it? Who are you as a parent to be the one to say, no, don't do that while all the other kids are doing it? Like my brother and I, when we were kids, going to school with our, peanut butter and honey and banana and celery sandwiches, and looking around and everybody's got Lunchables. And I'm like, man, I don't want one of these Capri Sun drinks. I want a Lunchables pizza. And who wants to trade for this? And people are like, yeah, right. Nobody wants that shit. I was like, I want a fruit roll up. It's junk, man. All of it is junk. And my heart goes out to you, every other parent, my brother and his wife. Like, I don't know. You tell me, man, what do you do? What can you do?
Bro, I have to tell you, it is hard. I mean, and it's, you almost, there's a point where there's nothing you can do unless they actually awake themselves and kind of see it for themselves when it hits them into the health. I mean, about a couple of years ago, my son was, we went to the doctor and she said he's pre-diabetic. That was a certain wake up call for him. And we finally cut him, some carbs and stuff like that. And he was able to start doing some exercise, and that turned out well. But still to date, I mean, I'm always challenged with them. I mean, they don't eat, the same way we eat. And it's not like, again, it's not like, it's funny. You go shopping, you spend money, the fridge is full, the cabinet is full, and they open up like, it's not an eat. Get the hell out of here. But really, this is my own struggle. And, I share it publicly because I know that other parents are having the same difficulty. And, when they're younger, you have a little bit more control. When they get a little older, again, everything around them, to your point, is pointing the same. Their friends eat a certain way. My daughter orders food every day. Well, we have, a full meal on the table.
Right. And that's not our kids. That's not your kids making those choices. That is an altered sense about them. That is an altered version of them. That is a program. That is an addicted behavioral pattern that is going after that same stimulus to get the same response. That is not our children. That is not our families. That is not us. That is the result or consequence of eating that. Like, you think about snacks. Let's say chips. I'm gonna go after young brands, Fritos and Tostitos and everything, Lay's. We'll go after Coca-Cola, all the drink companies and all the chip companies. Let's say this is not going to be the correct formula, but let's say Coca-Cola is C6H12O5NO2. That is not correct, but just for the sake of the example, C6H12 NO5 or NO2, whatever.
You give it a molecular.
Right. Yeah. So let's say that's the molecular formula. That formula, that chemical compound, whether it's for chips, Cheetos, Coca-Cola, whatever, has literally been titrated with a dropper to the limit of what is it allowed to be still considered not an addictive substance by the FDA, while at the same time maintaining the flavor profile that the company wants. So it has literally been engineered to have the flavor, but at the same time be as maximally close to the addictive substance line without being considered an addictive substance. That is fucking crazy. That is poison. That should be illegal. That is wrong. And that is why you, me, we, them, us all don't stand a chance, man. Until someone comes along, like me, and says, oh, I see what you guys are doing. So guess what? I'm going to figure out this way to reverse that. And that's what I do with people. And that is why the nutrition is absolutely the foundation. It's not about getting ripped. It's not about getting a butt or getting abs or getting guns. No. Like, when people used to come to me when I was a personal trainer in New York, Jake, can you help me get jacked? I was never that guy. I was never working from the outside in. Because guess what? When we get you feeling better, when we get you feeling, or rather being healthier equals feeling better. Being healthier, feeling better equals getting stronger. Being healthier, feeling better, getting stronger. Guess what that inevitably leads to? Looking better. The inverse is not true. I have stood on stages, ripped to shreds, competing in bodybuilding, et cetera, and supposed to be a specimen of health, and been freaking miserable because I was either depressed or still addicted to something, or listening to other competitors talk about they're going to go drink and they're going to go do blow after the show. And I'm like, this is fucking bullshit. But when you become healthier and start feeling better and start getting stronger, it's guaranteed you're going to look better. But the inverse is not true. But guess what? People want it that way. They don't care about feeling better. They don't care about getting healthier. Honestly, they'd rather not have to change anything and just change how they look. Because all they want to do is change this and go show it off to their friends on the weekend. Not have to actually make any adjustments, because that would be work and that would be sacrifice. And that would be what we don't want to do, because you don't want to believe it. You don't want to admit You need to do these things in order to get there. And when most people hear that, they're like, oh, I don't want to do that. Okay. But this is why it's real, because this is what we need. It's not what we necessarily want. And it's hard because it's real. But the results are lasting. None of my people relapse. They don't, 3 months later, oh, I blew it all up, because their lives change forever. They become unplugged. This is right from the Matrix. You can't fucking go back. You can't spit the red pill back out. And I tell every single person when they come to me, man, I said, don't get mad at me when you hate me, because I can't take you back out. I can't help you unsee it, because once you see it, you're going to forever be scarred. And I say that paradoxically, because you're welcome, but you can't unsee this. Once you start feeling this way, the feeling is your understanding. And then all of your beliefs, all of your familial indoctrination, political indoctrination, I don't give a fuck what country you're from, what religious beliefs you have, what abstinence, what dietary restriction or allergy or otherwise. Are you willing to die for it? Most people aren't. They might say they are, but I'd love to put that to the test and put guns to people's heads and be like, tell me you're really ready to die for this way of thinking. Are you? I don't think you are. And so giving people information, that is the greatest value that I would say I provide. It's not about teaching something novel, or I'm Thomas Edison and I figured out how to do the light bulb. Nah, it's like, no, all of this information has been within you. It's embedded in your DNA as an intrinsic quality of being a human being. And it has been deadened over your lifespan. And all I'm doing is helping you remove the blockages. And then once you start to feel those feelings, the feeling becomes the understanding, and the understanding becomes undeniable. And the undeniability of the understanding through feeling is where you go, oh, ignorance was bliss,
Yeah, it's funny. While we're talking, before you actually mentioned the Matrix, I was thinking about just staying in the same.
Oh, that's my movie.
I love that movie because, that movie is probably the closest to the reality of what we are today and what humanity has been
pretty
through.
Good. And Ready Player One is probably where we're headed, sadly.
Oh, yes. Yes.
But
yes.
The Matrix, yeah, man.
Yeah. Well, but you know what? You're right. The red pill, blue pill. Most people are on the blue pill. You take the red and they can't unsee what you know. It is what it is. There's no coming back. And well, you could, like in the first.
You can try.
Like put me back as somebody.
Right. And how'd that work out? How'd that work out for Cypher?
It didn't work out. Well, but you know what? That's the reality. But it takes people to have the will to make the change. Not everybody is volunteering to this. And to your point, information is the only way to share with people. And hopefully a small percentage of people can benefit from this. Hopefully they can share that with others and so on and so forth. And we have that domino effect. But you're right. Are we going to touch 100% of the universe? Probably not. But 1% of the time will be great. And
Exactly.
that's actually, even pushing it to a degree if you think about it. Because but at the end of the day, listen, you've realized that, I have realized the same thing. We are in the same kind of concept of clear minded folks, where we know what's good, what's not, but yet we still have to live within the parameters of the universe we live in. And it's tough because you are literally you are almost against the currents, and so you got to
not almost.
You
100%, definitely. There's nothing almost about it. I step outside and it's like, whoo, I'm in my own world, man, in many ways. And not mad about it.
Well, you're not, and most of the people will probably look at, well, this guy's kind of lost it. But you know what?
Yeah.
Unfortunately, that's always been the case historically. Anyone that has some clear understanding of the world was always portrayed as they are the odd ones. And that's okay. There's nothing with being an odd person. If at the end of the day, it serves you well, it serves the people around you, and you are doing righteousness. And again, we get the economy, we get the politics, we get everything else, the bigger scale things. But at the end of the day, is it even worth it? I always ask the question, how long do we live? If you think about it, I don't care who you are, what money you have, what position you have. There is a point of life where you're not going to end up in this world. That's the ultimate thing. So the question is, what have you done in this world? Did you contribute positive or contribute negative? And then you part on. So now here's the thing. We don't even have to question the afterlife because that's a whole different discussion, and we can debate it from any angle. If you do believe that there is an afterlife, well, that's a that's a tough question to ask. And some, if you, I guess maybe 70% of the people in this universe do believe in some kind of afterlife. Sure. So therefore, are we doing the right thing, before we check out, or are we doing the wrong thing? And by the way, even if there is nothing after all, let's pretend that's the case, and we'll entertain that idea. But the idea is that if this is it, what is your contribution?
Are you leaving it better than you found it?
Exactly. I mean, yeah. At the end of the day, even if this is the end, here and this is it, and there's nothing beyond, well, let's just be the best that we can be and be positive contributors and good contributors. That in itself is a good, way of living. But that takes a little level of, I don't know, you have to be at a higher plane than most, because it's not for everyone. We'd love to have everyone there. I mean, that would be the ideal, but it's almost going to be, because most people, everything that is wrong is usually sweeter. I mean, you said it, think about it, right?
Pun intended.
Well, but it's true, funny. Isn't it, right? When you're doing we think everything is like, it tastes good, it feels good, but it's really wrong for you. I mean, you take sweets, they taste good. You take salty, it's got a nice rush about it.
Yeah,
exactly. Different. But what I'm saying, like, obviously you're not doing that now. You might not relate to it because you've gone away from it. But when you were in that form,
don't get me wrong, I can still very much relate to it, like, because that's still in there,
But you know what I'm talking about? Like, it's like, it's got a nice little right? It feels good. It feels good, but it's temporary. And then the damage.
That's the pleasure center.
By the way, I love what you said about all the chemicals in our brains. There's two ways to get them: naturally or chemically induced. We just have two options, and most people will go the other way because it's easier. Plus, it costs more money. The other one is free. Actually, you can get it naturally for free.
Meditation. Oh God, the endorphins that I can kick on through meditation, the feelings of euphoria that I can get through breath work, ice baths. Oh my God, you want to talk about a real good boost of not just your immune system, but oxytocin, the feel-good hormone. Go do a cold plunge. Like, you'll get jacked up real fine from it. So the ways we can do that are, I recently did a 72-hour hard dry fast. Same thing. Got ultra euphoric towards the end of it, and found all kind of new feelings, new insights, new bits of enlightenment, by going into the proverbial desert that I put myself through. And that's why I do these things, whether it's subscribing to a 1 meal a day strict carnivore diet for 66 days, where I ate only 1 meal a day within a calorie deficit, strict as a carnivore, that I've been eating now a carnivore diet for over 3 years, or animal-based carnivore diet. And right now I'm 27 days into a strict lion diet. So for anybody that doesn't know, the 3 rings: animal-based, carnivore, lion. Animal-based meaning the majority of your calories come from animals and animal byproducts. So that's the denominator. The numerator can be whatever else you would like to be making up the rest of the calories. I would not put junk food in that numerator and still call it animal-based. No, but if you want to get fruit, whole vegetables, or whole foods, or otherwise, I say if you can pick it, pull it, or kill it, that's a good way to define animal-based. Pick it, pull it, kill it. Within animal-based would be carnivore. So no more pick it and pull it, kill it only. So animals and animal byproducts. But within that is the lion. And the lion would be ruminant or polygastric animals only, salt and water. And that's it. And I'm at day, like I said, 26 or 27 right now, that one. And it's a trip. But those are my deserts. Those are my deserts. The greatest thinkers, intellectuals, stoics, thought leaders, creators, theologians throughout history have used 3 things to elevate their consciousness: to speak to God, to find their ways with the ultimate being. Extended treks, prolonged fasting, and isolation. All of them use the same thing. Jesus, Muhammad, Gandhi, doesn't matter. I mean, pick Aristotle, pick whoever you want to put into that. Prolonged fast, extended treks, and isolation. So these are my ways of pulling those levers to go into those deserts and find my elevated states of consciousness, or me being able to talk to my supreme being, which is, guess what? It's you.
Jake, I have to say, I mean, we've exceeded the hour, and I'd like to spend more time, but I have to say, it was just delightful to just have this conversation. I mean, I enjoy every piece of it. First of all, the story behind your, transformation, the discussion about the healthy part of nutrition, how that is important. That is, most of us, we don't even think about that as a reason behind being well. And you're right. That is almost like the source of all our illnesses. Everything, is stems from that. I mean, naturally, we are meant to be, a reflection of what we eat, physically and mentally, right?
Yeah.
And so everything if it's wrong, it's going to give you a wrong. If it's good, it's going to give you good. And, and then we don't relate to that. You said it, there's movement, there's exercise, there's all the stuff that can still add up. But the core of it it starts with your kind of like what you it's like, I always refer to us as plants, right? We're very similar. If it's what you give to the plant, the nutrients, the water, and all stuff.
What's the fuel? Like, you're a Ferrari. You think you're a Ferrari? See how that Ferrari runs on fucking regular unleaded.
That's a good one. Yeah. Well, so Jake, couple of things before we close. How do people reach out to you? I'll have the link in the description of the show, so this way people can actually, and I'm assuming you're open worldwide to people.
Yeah. Oh yeah, I've got clients, and I'm in 16 time zones right now. So from the US, Canada, all the way into Asia and throughout Europe. You can find me at lifelikejake.com. So you can go read about me, see some of the testimonials, some of the literature, see some of my blogs, subscribe to my YouTube channel through there, which is youtube.com/@lifelikejake. And you can apply to the programs to work with me as well through the website. But the place that I'm the most active and personal and easily responsive would be on Instagram, which is also Life Like Jake. So you shoot me a DM, message me anything. It's me that responds. It's no one else. I don't have any bots. I don't have someone responding for me. It's literally going to be me. And a lot of times I send back voice memos or video responses, and people are like, "Oh my God, it's really him." I'm like, yeah, this is personal. And it's the real thing. So yeah, Life Like Jake, anywhere out there online, that's me.
Now, Jake, quickly, if someone joins your program, what does that time frame look like? In just from expectation purposes.
Yeah, so I've got different things where you can go monthly, a la carte, or 3 months, 6 months, and a year. Most people that sign up monthly immediately up for a package after the fact, because they realize how much they've done in that short amount of time and see the upside of what they'd be able to do in a longer amount, but saving themselves money with the packages. But yeah, man, I tell anybody, you give me 30 days to change your life. So
not much. I mean, that's an easy, ask. I mean, frankly, to be honest with you, because everybody who's really interested in being better owes it to themselves to look for what's available to them. And this is a resource, folks. And, I'm first of all, I'm like honored to have Jake on today's show. And I've learned a lot, and I relate to a lot of it. And I enjoy, because this keeps me motivated myself. And certainly, I enjoy to see people out there doing good and helping others to become better. And I think that's a calling in on its own, because I think the more you surround, again, you hear these stories, you just see them, you watch them, you hear the talk, it just keeps you motivated. I don't know if someone watching right now will probably be like, "Oh, I don't like what I heard right now." I mean, seriously, if
people start hearing about the diet, and they're like, "Oh, here's another guy talking about diets and nutrition," and like, I will say that's where most people turn, because it's what they don't want to hear, man. That's a fact.
Well, the reason they're going to do that is just because it's changing. That's the other thing, guys.
Exactly.
You have to be willing to change and to sacrifice. Without it, nothing's going to. I don't care what area you go into. That has to be the first, element. You're willing to change, then you change. If you're not, doesn't matter what we tell you, you're not going to do anything. But if you're open to it, test it out. But if you really are serious about making a real life change and a healthy, and again, we started the show with the idea of being healthy, wealthy, and just feeling good, money, body, and spirit. That's exactly what this is about. It's just a mindset shift. But without your will, without your ability to actually know that you want to change, it's not going to happen. You can hear 10,000 talks a minute.
That's what I call a wig on a pig.
It is what it is. But hey, listen, we're not going to change everyone, but we do hope that listen, guys, even if you don't want to change, maybe some of the words today can just at least trigger some elements for you to just open up a little bit to the idea that maybe there is a way out, maybe you can do better. And whether through Jake or through any other opportunity, guess what? If we can even help you to get to that point, that's already a success story for our, chat today. Now ultimately, if you want the resource, Jake is here and certainly do use his services. Again, nothing to lose, right, Jake?
Nothing to lose, only to gain.
That's right.
I mean, maybe you'll lose some inches and have to buy a new wardrobe for most people.
That's a good loss. that's an acceptable loss.
And some ego and some bad memories and some negative energy. But yeah, that's the good stuff that we like to lose.
Listen, at the end of the day, if the result is like to be in that euphoria, that bliss that you feel, and that we are getting the energy for right now,
all day,
I think that beats any drug and any other type of inducing chemical.
All day, brother.
All right, Jack. Well, listen, it was a pleasure and an honor. Thank you so much for being with us here, and I really enjoyed it. Any last words of wisdom to share with our audiences today?
No, thank you so much, Hurricane. I appreciate the time and the space and letting me share. Like I said, it's an outlet for me to be able to do this, and it's a need. And just to impress upon everybody else out there, you might be the individual, it might be your journey, but remember, it takes all the people to make the world.
All right. That's it, Jake. Thank you so much. And folks, thank you for being with us, for watching, for listening in. And yes, do check out, the link and reach out to Jake. Or share. If you don't think this is for you, maybe for someone, share it with others. So that being said, I'm Hurricane H. Thank you for watching. New day, new show, new topic coming up, and we'll be talking soon. Bye for now.